now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
What is going on, RBLR Nation? You are tuning into the Rays portion of RBLR Sports. I am your host, Zach, and unfortunately, Mr. Ben Whitelaw could not be here today, but to fill in for him and step up to the plate, we have Mr. Alex from Raise the Roof. How are you doing today, brother?
I am doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me on. I know this has been something that I think has been in the works for a little bit now. So I'm glad to have taken over. I mean, I feel like I don't know if I'm qualified enough to take over Ben's spot, but for what it's worth, I'm very excited to be on, talk some Rays, talk some baseball.
Well, we appreciate you stepping in, man. It means a lot. And last week we had all our guests on, and just the community is amazing, and it's cool that we get to do this with other people if we can't have our guys on.
Yeah, of course.
Plus, it makes it a little bit better watching the Red Sox get demolished last night.
That was – see, I'm like looking back at that game, maybe I don't have as much of disdain and distaste for the Red Sox as I know other people do. I was kind of disappointed in the Blue Jays, to be honest, because and I knew this was going to happen. That 30-3 game that the Rangers put on the Orioles back in 2007, I just had a feeling that there's no way in hell that's going to be broken in terms of like modern era scoring. Yeah. And once again, I was 100% right, because the exact same thing happened. I was like, they got up to 27 in the fifth inning, or 25 in the fifth inning, whatever it was. And I was like, yep, there's still going to be a way that they're not going to score 5 runs or 6 runs by the end of the game, and they're not going to break the record. And sure enough, I was right.
It made me oddly happy because my dad is a diehard Red Sox fan. And I love my dad. That sounded really bad to start off, but my dad is a diehard Red Sox fan, and they came up to Tennessee from Florida on Thursday. So we went out to dinner last night and got home and saw the score, and he's like, "What the hell?" I said, "I told you, the Red Sox are not them. They're not that guy, bud."
Yeah. So the rest of my family are all Phillies fans. So I talk about another team that was absolutely shellacked yesterday, because it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I think it was like 15-1, something like that. I don't know what it was specifically, but it wasn't good. Oh, 15-2. Yeah, that's right, because Derek Hall hit a home run in the ninth inning.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So with all that out of the way, though, we have kind of a slow week of baseball for the Rays anyway. Some of our division rivals have played a little bit, but I wanted to kind of get your take on how the first half of the season went for us, and then a little later on kind of what we expect in the second half of the season, if you're down for that.
Yeah. So, I mean, talking about the first half, well, luckily we actually just released a first half kind of like mega episode thing we had on Danny Russell from D-Rays Bay. And during that episode, we were all just dumbfounded by what the hell is going on with this team, because it doesn't seem like there's any feasible and possible way that, with everything that's going on, injuries, the base running errors, fielding not being up to par, all of the blown saves that have happened in the bullpen, they shouldn't be 10 games above 500 going, or at least when they went into the All-Star break. I know they won last night, so now they're 11 games over, but it seems unfathomable that they've found a way to do that. And I know Danny specifically mentioned this thing called the Kevin Cash line, which was his basically splits when he was in the major leagues, and I believe he batted like 183. And there are like 5 guys hovering around that point, which is an astounding number. Like the fact that more than multiple, like literally I could fill up this entire hand with stuff like that. I don't know how they've been able to do it. I mean, it's funny because people always talk about the Lightning being like the findaways, and always, having the ability to find a way to win somehow, some way. The Rays are pretty much the baseball equivalent of that, at least right now. And it doesn't make any sense, but it's just like, I think if you told me all of that was going to happen and they were 10 games above 500, I wouldn't be surprised at all, even though I still am.
See, I think that's kind of what got me, was just the fact that we had, I think at one point, 16 people on the IL. And if I'm not mistaken, that ties a record for us from back in is either 2020 or 2021 in August.
Okay.
So for us to have that many guys hurt kind of that early in the first half, and I mean, we've lost KK what seems like for the rest of the year. Franco's out for another 6 to 8 weeks, and it feels like if you would have told me that in the beginning of this season, I would have expected us to be under 500. Just realistically, not as like a negative Nancy or anything, just as a realistic fan being like, okay, with that many injuries and that many people out, and some of the people performing the way that they are, it's like, yeah, there's no way we're gonna be at 500.
See, I agree with you on that, but I also think that because the Rays are just such an anomaly within baseball, that if you were to tell me that they, through all of this stuff, through losing Margot probably until the end of the year, like you said, KK until the end of the year, Kittredge is out for with Tommy John, Yanni and Glass now are still coming back off the IL. Fire Ison's been out for God knows how long now. Lau was out for like 3 months in the middle of the year. Franco's might be out until the end of the year. Who knows?
Yeah.
Hopefully not. I mean, all of those guys, even with all of that going on, if you still told me somehow there were 10 games above 500, I would be like, my goodness, who the hell did they find that they were able to turn into an absolute stud? And luckily, I mean, I will say, kind of pissed off that Harold got hurt because, and I think that was another thing that we talked about in the episode, which is that like every time a guy got good, like it was like almost destined that something bad was going to happen as a result. So it's almost like, it was a bad thing that these guys were performing so well, because Harold was like overperforming like crazy, and then now he's out because I believe it was either his thumb or something in his one of the fingers in his hand is fractured. And then Manny was out of his mind, and then that happened. Wander was out of his mind to start out the year, and then everything happened with him. I don't know. I choose to not try to overanalyze things, because then I get smooth brain, and it's just a lot. I feel like that's the easiest way.
See, you're not wrong though. Like there's times where I'm like, at this point, when is Isaac Paredes going to get hurt? or anyone that's overperforming or helping our team out? I'm like, when is the next big injury? And I try not to think like that, because I am of the mindset that, if you think it's going to happen. So like I try not thinking that way, but it feels like it's getting harder and harder when all of these injuries come out, and I don't see any replacement for them in sight, if that makes sense.
No, it completely does. I do think that they've been making moves that very much like under the radar moves since the offseason that have really helped out to at least stabilize the team in some way. So, like, when they added in Christian Bethancourt, hopefully that'll help out with the catching side of things, because then you won't have to rely on Renee Pinto being a backup for the team. Oh, I completely forgot about Mike Zunino. He's going to be out until God knows how long, because I believe he's got the thoracic outlet syndrome or something like that. And that's really, really tough for guys to come back from. I mean, Thompson was out for a good part of a year, or maybe I'm over exaggerating that, but he was out for a decent while with that.
He was out for a while.
Yeah. So, guys like that, like I said, Harold in the offseason, the Paredes trade has really worked out in the Rays' favor thus far. I mean, they just always seem to find. I mean, I know, they just picked up Yu Chang off waivers recently. I mean, for what it's worth, if you guys want to put any stock into Roman Quinn, I know that he wasn't fantastic with the Phillies, having watched way too many of him in a Phillies uniform. It was it was a lot, but I mean, he's fast, he's a good defender, and he's been decent in terms of minor league numbers offensively. So,
yeah,
guys like that, they've just tried to piecemeal things together without having to land, a big name in the process, and it's just worked.
Yeah, so not disagreeing with you. I think that this is going to be our next kind of topic is like the second half of the season. But I'm praying at this point that the piecing together works for the rest of the year. I guess is where my head's at.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah, that part's tough because a lot of the piecemealing, as you know, a lot of the piecemealing is also coming from them bringing up minor league guys. So, like them
Yeah,
having to rely on Bruhan and Taylor Walls and Josh Lowe. And I know Aranda was up for a little bit. I really want to see him back. I don't know when that's going to happen. Tommy Romero. I think they pulled up Luke Bard from the
yeah,
minors. I mean, just a bunch of guys that they're trying to bring up from the minor leagues. I know Rayleigh was in the minor leagues too. Luke Rayleigh, because there's
yeah,
two Rayleighs on the team. There's a lot of minor league guys that are being pulled up and are having to step into much larger roles with the team. I think much larger roles than maybe even they expected. And as a result, that is definitely difficult. And we're seeing that with guys like Walls and Lowe who are still struggling at the plate. I mean, luckily Lowe's average is kind of hovering around 200 now, which is, for what it's worth, really not that great. But for him, at least continuing to build up that average and to build up his confidence at the plate is going to be huge, because I think that I don't know if this is true for everyone, but I think that a lot of Rays fans are really optimistic about him. And if he can continue to work on that bat speed against, faster pitchers and, get a quicker swing through the plate, or get his bat through the plate at a quicker rate, and then hopefully tweak other things, then, positive momentum from there. But yeah, it is still a lot of piecemealing, very much a lot of piecemealing and reliance on players that I don't think at the start of the year that they would have necessarily wanted to rely on at this point.
yeah. They're kind of counting on people that they weren't expecting to count on, which is kind of a Rays way. It feels like I feel like every year there's someone that overperforms and shows us that, hey, I'm legit, but then the next season we won't hear from him because everyone's healthy again. So I feel like that's kind of just how the Rays do it and how they manage to continue to do it. But I'm going to take that and lead us into our next little spot and see kind of what your expectations are for the second half of the season, and then see if there's certain players you think are going to have to step up that maybe aren't doing what they're doing now, or maybe underperforming or not being talked about as much.
Yeah. So, I mean, they came out with a win the first game of the series against the Royals. So that's a positive thing going into the second half, that they were, it is the Royals, but keep in mind the Rays have struggled, as we've seen, against, lesser competition this season. I will say, I think one of the biggest keys to this team, and I think it's one that's a very, very obvious big key, but it's one worth mentioning, is Brandon Lau. The
Yeah.
fact that he, in his last, because he came up on the 15th, or 16th, he was activated on the 16th.
Yeah.
So he's had 8 hits in his last 3 games, and I think he's like 8 for 15 or 8 for 13 right now. So he's like out of his mind right now. Is not really hitting home runs, but is at least getting contact and getting on base, getting the Rays in a position to win, be successful. That sort of stuff is incredibly important. I know that for a lot of people, when Wander was there and it was just Wander, even having him in the dugout, having him, around the team and all of that, that plays, and that's incredibly important to the confidence of an offense.
Yeah.
And the confidence of a team in general. And I think the same thing, even more so, I think will happen with Lau, because of the fact that, and I believe this to be true, that he is the best hitter on the team. I mean, he's a guy
Agreed.
Yeah, he's a guy who in the last 2 years has put up I think from what I saw, OPS plus of over 140. I don't know how that translates to WRC plus, but I'm assuming it's probably in that same range. He's a guy who can hit. He's shown he can hit 40 bombs, and he's like 5'9". I don't know how many guys at 5'9" can hit 40 bombs.
You're not wrong.
And his average was definitely not great last year, but I think he's a guy who can realistically hit 260 to 270 every year, hit 30 home runs, driving close to 100 RBIs, if not more than that, and be a really, really productive player for a team. And, you know, if the Rays are only going to get him for 80 games or so this entire season, and a lot of those are going to come in the stretch run of the year, like, this is the time when they need to essentially piggyback off of his success and go forward from there. I mean, it's incredibly important to have your best hitters in the lineup, which is a very, very obvious statement, but it's like it's imperative for the Rays that they need to take advantage of the fact that Lau right now is healthy and, you know, utilize the guys around him in the lineup to be successful, because pitchers aren't going to want to pitch to him. So if they don't want to pitch to him, then they'll pitch to other guys.
Exactly.
And then those other guys need to take advantage of those situations.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And I think you saw that in last night's game when Lowe was batting, if I'm not mistaken, right before him in the lineup. I could be completely wrong, but I think it was one of our lower batting average guys batting before Lau last night. So it just kind of plays into effect. In my opinion, they're going to be more likely to pitch to those guys who have the lower average, who we need to step it up a little bit, build that confidence up, and it works for them, I guess.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I'm going to check the box score just so I can see who people wear in the lineup. It was Yandy, Bilal, and then Randy were the top three. J-Lo was in between Paredes and Walls.
Oh, okay. So then my statement there was completely false, because Walls is just as bad as J-Lo in the batting average category right now.
Yeah. The bottom four of that lineup, or bottom five of that, I guess bottom four of that lineup isn't great, but it was nice to see Frankie getting a few hits. His average is up to nearly 250, so that's good. I mean, the more that you can have guys that aren't batting 200 or less in the lineup, the better.
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty obvious statement to make, but that stuff is incredibly important. And I mean, you know, Frankie, I think maybe he's not as clutch of a hitter this year, but he definitely felt like a more clutch hitter last year. But if they can, you know, just things like that is going to be really helpful. But the more that you can have a solidified top half of the lineup, then hopefully that means the more that the bottom half of the lineup will be able to contribute consistently.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that hopefully, fingers crossed, it's going to. I mean, we look at a guy like KK, who a lot of times last year was towards the bottom of the lineup. And then this year, or towards the second half of the season, was, you know, he had a couple of runs where he was on fire last season. So kind of fingers crossed that's what happens to guys like Brett Phillips, who I think now is going to have a lot more playing time with Harold Ramirez and KK out. I think he's going to have more playing time. Josh Lowe is going to have more playing time. I think that we're going to need guys like that to go on those runs that KK did last year. I mean, Brett Phillips, I have been very vocal on my support for him, and he's my favorite player on the Rays. He's having a terrible season this year at the plate. I mean, just point blank, period. There's no way around it. He's not having a good season at the plate, and it's like we need that Phillips that can hit around 200, maybe a little higher, and also hit a few bombs here and there. Like, I feel like all he does is hit a bomb, and then he's gone for, 25 to 30 plate appearances, and it's like, what we need him to be more consistent. I know that he's not our best player, but from top to bottom, we need that consistency, and I don't think we have that right now.
Yeah. Now, I do want to ask you, out of curiosity, this right now where the Rays are this season, and moving forward, do you think that they need to make any wholesale changes, or do you think that anything needs to happen to possibly propel the team in a more positive direction? Or do you think that it's more of just kind of waiting and seeing what is going on right now and hoping that things trend positive?
So we did an episode not long ago with Ulysses, actually. It was me, Ben, and Ulysses. And we did an episode where we were kind of the GM for a day. If we were the GM for the Rays, and I was the one that made kind of the bigger trades. So I am a proponent in getting someone who we have control of still, I'm not going to say a guy like Juan Soto. Like, I don't think that that's realistic.
Mm-hmm.
But someone who can play the outfield and can hit better than some of the guys that we have, I would like to see that happen. And I would like to see I don't think we need to trade for a pitcher. I think Luis Patino is going to come back, and I think he's going to be okay. So I think that it's going to be kind of a wait and see. I know that he pitched one time before the All-Star break, but I think it's just going to be a wait and see. I don't think we're going to make any major trades or anything crazy. So I'm expecting it to be wait and see and kind of hoping for at least a somewhat big name player to come over.
Now, are you overall, are you feeling confident about this team? Or are you still nervous with everything that's going on?
I'm in a weird in-between place.
Okay.
I'm not nervous like, oh, we're not going to make the playoffs. I think we're a playoff team. I guess my concern comes in, are we a deep playoff team?
Mm.
So I at this point, I'd say 95% to 98% chance we make the playoffs, 60% chance we make a deep playoff run for my take right now, if we keep the team exactly how it is.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to think about on my end when it comes to the playoffs specifically. I don't see, it's tough to say right now that they can, and I agree with you. It is a lot tougher to analyze to see if they can be a deep playoff team, only because of the strength of the AL, especially the teams in like the top part of it, because it's incredibly hard to not overlook the Yankees and the Astros specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
If we're going to talk about teams, I mean, the Astros have taken 5-7 from New York this year and have looked really, really good against the Yankees. And I don't know how much regular season plays into the postseason for the most part, but I think that that's something really, really interesting to keep track of. And then also what happened last night with Michael King, apparently having some sort of a pop in his elbow or whatever it might be, reading, whatever lip reading as he was coming off the mound. That's big. And they have two guys right now that they're relying on in their bullpen, him and Clay Holmes. And they are both going to exceed their career high. Well, A, they've never really done this before, at least been in this role as a reliever. And B, they are well going to exceed their career highs in innings pitched. So then you're creating basically, a circumstance where if they don't have a back end of their bullpen, everything would just fall apart like that.
Yeah. Well, he's actually out for the season now.
Oh, wait, he's confirmed out? Oh,
yeah, ESPN.
Wait, was it a UCL tear?
I don't know that it says will miss the rest of the 22 season after suffering a fractured right elbow.
Jesus Lord.
Yeah, so he's out for the season with a fractured right elbow.
I didn't see that until wait, hold on. And now I need to find out where the hell who said that.
It was
that
sources. It just says sources confirmed to ESPN.
Oh, okay. Wait, did Jeff say it?
I'm looking for it now. It doesn't say who said it or who wrote it.
Yeah, let me go quick. I'm just I just want to confirm this for myself. Oh, Joel Sherman said it.
Okay, yeah.
And then Lindsay talked about it for a little bit. This is something that's kind of happened. It seems to be more of a recent thing. Oh, John Heyman also just, within the last 20 minutes or so, Michael King has fractured elbow out for the year. Reports Joel Sherman awaiting MRI results to see about ligament.
Yeah, that's wild. You heard it here first on RBLR Sports.
Yeah, that is when I say that this is a massive, massive blow to this team, this could forever alter the rest of their season. And I don't say that lightly.
No, you're not
Yeah,
wrong.
it's when you're only relying on two guys, and we saw how ineffective Chapman's been since coming off the IL.
Exactly.
If you're relying on two guys, and one of those guys can no longer pitch, then the work of that second guy is going to be doubled, if not tripled.
Yeah. Which is going to lead to an injury.
Yeah, exactly. Which is then going to further cause problems when he could potentially get injured. I mean, that is huge. And I'm not saying that as a good thing, as a Rays fan. It's more of just examining it and being like, wow, this is insane. But also, if you think about it more in hindsight, it was something that I feel like more people should have expected to happen. And I don't say that to be cynical or anything. It's more of realizing the situation at hand and knowing that they were going to, same thing with like, guys exceeding career highs in innings in any sort of way as a starter or a reliever. I mean, Nestor's going to be at that point at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's going to happen. I know that, Jeffrey Springs has already exceeded his career high in innings pitched.
I believe so. Yeah, I think it was before the All-Star break exceeded it.
Corey Kluber, he already exceeded his innings from last year and is on on track to have as many innings as he had, post all of his injuries that happened. So, these things are things to continue to keep track of because it could end up negatively. But if I don't know. I'm not gonna blame the Yankees and say, oh, they don't know how to take care of their pitchers and they don't have, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they don't have, I guess they don't take care of arms correctly and they overuse guys. But, you just got to make sure that you take care of the arms as much as possible. So I'm actually really, really grateful so far that Springs has been as good as he's been with that, higher innings load. Same thing with Kluber. I didn't know. Now, quickly, what did you expect out of Kluber coming into the year?
It was another one of those things where I was hoping for really, really successful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I watched his first couple of games, I was like, I'm not really that impressed. But then going through more of the season, I'm like, okay, this is what I needed. I don't know that I was expecting it, but this is what I needed. He's been very successful so far with us, in my opinion, and I'm thankful that we were able to get him. I didn't have very many expectations for him though when we got him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the way that they've used Kluber this year is a way that it's funny because I don't think people talk about him. Like no one talks about him, and he's just there. And that's all that they wanted him to do was just be there and be a guy who can eat up innings, have a 3 ERA and go from there. And I think that that's been exactly what they've been looking for is a guy who can he's fit the I don't want to say the billing, but the, what they needed. He's fit the role that they needed to a T.
Yeah, exactly. We have all of our high strikeout guys. We have McClanahan. We have Rasmussen, who's not really a high strikeout guy per se, but he has the ability in some of his games to get, between, let's say, 6 and 8 strikeouts. That's not what he's averaging or anything. I think he's averaging around 4.5 or 5. But we have those guys that when they go out and pitch, we expect them to throw fast. We expect them to, get people out. When it comes to Kluber, I think you nailed it right on the head. He just fits that role. We needed a guy that could just eat up, 3 to 6 innings. Usually I think he's hovering around 4 or 5, but in that range, and just kind of not make it to where we're having 2 games where our bullpen is throwing half of the game.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention Drew because Drew, I'm pretty sure going to be exceeding his innings limit from last year because remember he was a reliever until the Rays were like, oh yeah, we'll turn you into a starter, and then it
worked out.
Classic Rays fashion. It really worked out well, and things like that, the small things of getting a guy like Kluber coming in and providing stability in the rotation, having guys, converting Springs to a starter. And I know that he's in a little bit of a weird situation right now, or, an unusual predicament with what's going on with his son. And that's definitely that is precedent over anything. That is
as it
precedent over
should
baseball.
be. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So I think it's, he's taking off the time that he so desperately needs. And I completely am fine with that. And he'll be back soon, which is a good thing. But, if you're riding with a rotation of Kluber, I mean, not in any order, but if we were going to do order, McClanahan, Rasmussen, Springs, Kluber, Springs, whatever it might be, and then figuring out the fifth guy along the way of Patino, Yarborough, however you want to do it. Like I'll take that front four if, based on, or I guess that first four based on what they've done this year, way more than I would have thought. And that's no way in hell that I think that the Rays would have expected it to be like that. I think that 3 of the 5 guys were going to be there, which would be Kluber, Shane, and Drew. But no one knew that Springs was going to be like this. And I mean, the 5th starter, maybe that was expected, that it was just going to be a hodgepodge of guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's good. It's cautious optimism for the future, I think, is a good way to put it.
Now, a question for you. You mentioned the lineup or the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
When Patino is healthy, where do you think he realistically slots in there?
5.
5? Okay.
Yeah, and I don't mean that to be rude to him. I just think that when you're looking at the performances of the guys this year, and you look at how good that they've been, and you look at, I guess, like the best of Patino, I still think that he's 5 in that rotation. And that's a good 5 to have if he's on his game. I can't put Kluber at a 5 because he's a veteran. So
exactly.
He's probably a 3. Just to like give him credit where credit's due. I mean, he's a 2-time Cy Young Award winner.
Exactly.
Like, he deserves his due. Drew's been really good this year. I know that he's been on the IL at times, but for the most part, he's been good. Springs has been really good. Shane's been really good, as we all know. I mean, that's kind of a given at this point. So,
which is nice to say, to be able to say that.
It is. So if you're having 4 guys that are having above average to good to even great years, and Patino's your 5, I'm fine with that. I think that's that's no disrespect to him. If he was in any other rotation, I'm sure he'd be a 3. I can't say that he'd be anything higher than a 3 right now, unless he's on like a team just that's got no pitching. But I think, like, realistically, he's a 3. But I mean, he has good potential and good stuff. He's just a young guy who's still trying to figure himself out.
Yeah, I think I would slot him in at 4. I agree with, obviously, McClanahan 1, Rasmussen 2, having Kluber at 3. You're spot on with look what he's done in his career. It is almost a respect thing at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And he's performing. He's doing exactly what we need him to do. But I would put him at 4 just because Springs is, as great as he's doing, it's kind of one of those things, like, he is getting really close to his innings limit or already past his innings limit. So maybe give him a little more rest, kind of a bulk guy almost. Put Patino at 4, Springs at 5.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I wouldn't be against that. But, that's a good problem to have for for a team that is, that has had its fair share of pitching issues. I guess that's more of on the bullpen side of things because so many guys have gotten hurt. But it's a good problem to have when you're when you're trying to discuss who's a better 4 starter or who's a better, whatever it might be. It's that is a good problem to have. And knock on wood, I don't. There's like a wood thing over there that I don't really feel like going to touch, but it's hopefully everything stays the course. And everything, these guys continue to perform and play well, and that's a big confidence booster for, I think, everyone. That the pitching is rolling. That's what you want to see, is the pitching continue to roll. Yeah,
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that's going to play a huge part in and how the second half of our season goes. And I know Ben is super high on the Rays for the second half of the season, rightfully so. I believe he tweeted out that he's expecting them to have the best record in our division. So with that, my question is, do you expect them to do better in the second half of the season than we did in the first half?
I expect them to stay the same because I'm trying to stay even keel and not try to get too high or too low.
Yeah.
So I'm, and I'm fine with them staying the course because them staying the course is them getting in the playoffs.
Yeah.
If they don't win the division, it's not that big of a deal as long as they get in the playoffs as a result. That's the biggest thing. I mean, you have a lot of now. I don't know if Seattle won last night, and if they didn't win, then that sucks for them. But that would mean that the Rays would be like a game and a half to 2 games up right now in the wild card race. I can confirm the Seattle thing right now for myself. What? Oh yeah, they lost
5-2. Yeah.
Wow, 14-game losing streak over. So that's So the Rays are 1.5 up clear of everyone. So that's both Seattle and Toronto. They're 1.5 clear, and then another 2.5 games on top of that from the next closest team. So that's a 4-game really spread between the team or the last team that's not in the wild card picture to them. And I mean, that's not a lot right now, but them staying the course and them continuing to be successful, knowing where the rest of the league is right now, especially the 2 best teams in the league. That's how I feel. I don't want to try to get too high. I don't want to try to get too low. I don't want to try to expect that anything's going to happen. The only thing that I can expect right now is for them to continue to be competitive, and I think that's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, I think I'm relatively on the same page as you. I think that we're going to finish the season. This is just a guess at this point, but I think we're going to finish the season no less than 10 games above 500. But I also don't think we're going to go on a crazy run that puts us, 20 games above 500, if that makes sense. So
I completely get that.
I'm expecting a little more, but kind of along the same page you said. I don't want to get my hopes up too high. Winning our division, I think, is going to take way more than just the King injury from the Yankees. I think that they're going to have a few more injuries. I was not as high on them coming into this season. I didn't think that they had done enough to be as good as they are this year. But credit to them, as much as I hate to admit it, because gosh, I hate the Yankees, but they have a phenomenal team this year.
I said at the start of the year, I was like that the kind of Falefa deal. I thought that was a really, really good deal for them because they were getting rid of guys that I think were detriments to the team. More or less Gary. I don't think that Gio was a detriment to the team, but definitely Gary. Gary was
he was rough.
He was a bad defensive catcher. But look at how in the span of a year, how getting rid of your worst defensive catcher makes your makes your catching that much better as a result because you've now addressed the problem and you've gotten rid of the issue. That has made everything so much better. They've made so many tweaks that have allowed them to be this successful. I don't know if I expected them to be nearly as good as they were. I mean, I expected them to get into the playoffs and be a playoff team and compete for the division. I expected more out of the other teams in the division, specifically Toronto.
Agreed.
But I also think that Toronto's now dealing with its own things now. So I guess that's something that I should have expected more. But I mean, definitely they're a good team, and it's going to be a lot to it's either internally stuff that happens or externally the Rays just playing out of their mind. But it's going to take a lot to dethrone them right now at the top of the division. Yeah,
exactly. And they had who was it? Was it Chapman? Matt Chapman?
Who are you talking about? The Blue Jays?
No, the Yankees.
They got Donaldson. Chapman went to the Blue Jays in a trade.
Who? Why am I tripping right now? No, they picked up somebody who got released by, I want to say, the Cardinals.
Oh, Matt Carpenter.
Carpenter. There we go. They pick him up. He gets DFA'd or gets released, and they pick him up, and he becomes this just.
I don't understand.
Hitting home runs and being an animal, and it's the most confusing thing I've ever experienced in my entire life.
He's batting like 360 right now, and he's got
Yeah.
like 15 bombs already, and I don't understand it.
How does a guy like that get released and then allowed to sign with the damn Yankees?
Well, I don't think anyone expected the short porch thing. I think that's the biggest thing is he's taking advantage of the short porch to a major extent. I'm trying to see how many home runs I think he's got 13. Yeah,
I believe it's 13.
He's got 13, and he's had 86 at bats this year. So he's hitting a home run basically every 15%.
That's insane.
Of the time.
He would be leading the Rays, tied for the lead on the Rays with 13 home runs.
Yeah, he's batting. Oh, he's only batting 326 now. Wow, he's gone down.
That's it.
Yeah, I know. He was batting 367. Man, he is falling apart at the seams.
I just when you get pickups like that, it almost feels like you can do no wrong.
Yeah, I mean, he's another guy. He's 6'4". Okay, I forgot. Okay, forget what I said. I thought he was way shorter. I was like, he's like Brandon Lowe.
A Bilal guy?
No, he's not. He is much taller Bilal guy. I mean, but he's also a guy who hit 36 bombs with the Cardinals in 2018. So, like, he's a guy who can hit home runs. But when you take him and his swing and what he does as a lefty, and you combine that with the fact that Yankee Stadium, especially for lefties, is a bandbox.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like hitter's heaven.
Exactly.
So it shouldn't be as surprising for people that he's been this successful offensively. I mean, maybe not at this rate, but I think just in general, I think it's important to note that he's done this before, not to this level, but he's posted, many seasons. I'm looking here of like OPS is over 800. He's had he's had 5 and 6 years. He had basically averaged like an 850 OPS or something like that. So I mean, he's a good. Actually, take that back. 6 and 7 years. He had over an 800 OPS, and he's got an 825 OPS for his career. So he's a good player. He can hit. It's just he's sucked the last 2 years. So I think everyone just kind of took him for granted, and then he got the opportunity and took advantage of it.
Hey, good on him. I mean, like I said, as much as I hate the Yankees, I don't want to see anyone fail or get hurt. But except for Donaldson, he's kind of he's kind of a douche. But aside from that, I don't want to see anyone fail. But I mean, it's just, I guess that kind of leads into my next question. Sort of, who do you expect needs to step up to further the Rays' chances of making, let's just say, I think we're both on the same page that they're going to make a playoff, correct?
Yeah.
So who's the guy that needs to step up for you to say they're going to make a deep playoff run?
I think it's going to be guys that you're not thinking of, guys like, a Brett Phillips, guys like a Frankie Mejia, guys like a Isaac Paredes getting back to what he was doing. I mean, even Randy having more success at the plate. Yeah. I'm just trying to go through the lineup right now and kind of looking at different guys. But players that don't necessarily have major roles are going to be the guys that are going to be the most important for this team, because we're expecting the big guys to perform, at that level, because that's what we're expecting out of them. But it's the guys that are not nearly as important or not nearly as productive in the starting lineup, whatever it might be. Those are the guys that are going to have the biggest impact offensively. And then, I mean, on the pitching side of things, you just got to hope that guys don't get hurt and they don't keep going to, having to go back and forth with guys in the bullpen. And I'm sorry, guys back and forth with Durham.
With Durham, yeah. See, so I'm on again. I think we look at it a lot of the same, because I am on the page of. I'm not going to say Bilal. Randy, I agree with. I think if Wander comes back, he's obviously going to do Wander things. But I think the people that need to step up are, you nailed on that, Brett Phillips. I even had a guy like Yu Chang in there. Some of these guys that we picked up that aren't or weren't expected to do a lot, I think are going to now have to do a lot. I think Taylor Walls is going to have to step up. Guys like, Isaac Paredes, he's going to have another month where he has 4 home runs. Like, he's just going to have to be this ridiculous. He needs to be our power bat at this point, I think.
I agree 100%. Without a doubt.
So that's kind of where I'm at. In order for us to make a deep playoff run, we need to be able to count on people that weren't expected to be counted on, and I
We
think
need
that
we
we could
need
do that.
we need Josh Lowe to not have a 37% strikeout rate.
Oh my God,
I just looked it up because I was curious because he had 3 punchies last night.
yeah,
That is a big concern. I mean, he can hit, and we've seen him hit, but it would be preferred if he could get down to like 25% by the end of the year because 37% is not good.
I don't think I'm as high on Josh Lowe as most people are. Not that I don't think he's going to be a solid MLB player. I just don't think he's going to be that star that it looked like he was going to be in the minors.
I can see that.
So I guess I'm not surprised that he's having kind of these issues, but it sucks because he's one of those guys that, like, I wanted to do good. I just didn't kind of expect it.
Yeah, I mean, it is worth noting that he's hitting 286 in his last 7 games. So, and 245 in his last 15. I mean, those aren't, I'm not saying like those are outwardly crazy stats, but just, that's better for him.
But compared to what he's been doing this season, like, that's significantly better.
I agree. Yeah, and he really needs to get that strikeout rate down because that is concerning. I understand he's a rookie, but that is really concerning.
Yeah, but I mean, so he's a rookie that saw, if I'm not mistaken, he saw a little bit of action. Did he see a little bit of action last year?
He's played in 1 game.
1 game. Okay, so not what I was
thinking. Very limited action.
I mean, 1 game, he should know all of it by now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm completely with you. I mean, you play 1 game and you should, be a Hall of Famer at that point.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Wander was at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, that kind of, aside from all of that stuff, I'm obviously, like I said, predicting a playoff run. Depending on all of that is, I think, how deep of a playoff run we're going to do. But that's kind of all that I had to talk about on this show, on this episode, due to just not having very many games to talk about. But I want to give you time. Yeah, if you have any questions to ask me or that you want to talk about or anything you want to plug.
I mean, did you enjoy the All-Star break? Did you enjoy watching Shane McClanahan for 1 inning and then not caring about the rest of the All-Star game?
I honestly did not watch any of the All-Star stuff this year. I obviously watched all, like, the highlights of it and obviously tuned in a little bit for Shane McClanahan. I saw a lot of people freaking out over McClanahan having a bad outing, like it really mattered.
Yeah, I just think he was excited and he was like, "Oh, LA, cool! I'm starting the All-Star game. This is cool."
I feel like people forget he's 20, 23, 24.
He's a young dude. He is in his mid-20s right now.
Yeah, like, he's only been in the majors for 2 years realistically, and he's already the AL starter. There's gonna be hiccups. There's gonna be the jitters. Like, he's in the lead for the Cy Young right now. You can't base an inning of the best hitters in the league going against him. Every person in that lineup is one of the best at their position in the league, and expect him to not, get hit around a little bit.
This is true. Yeah, I mean, I watched the Home Run Derby because I was like, I love watching the Home Run Derby, but it was kind of weird that, like, it wasn't sold out. And that was like showcasing LA at its finest, where it's at 8:00 our time, which means it's 5 p.m. their time. So it's literally basically in the middle of the afternoon when everyone's coming back home from work, and it was on a Monday. So I'm sure that the traffic crawl was fantastic.
Oh my God, I couldn't imagine.
LA. So that was, that was fantastic. I guess, what a way to showcase LA in the All-Star game than not having a sold out stadium even for the Home Run Derby, because people just can't get to games because it's so ridiculous.
Now, what was your take on Pujols' little thing there?
Well, I mean, it was cool. I think it was a good idea that the new CBA allowed there to be players honored like that maybe we wouldn't have thought to be honored in the All-Star game by fan vote. So that was cool. I was very skeptical about the Home Run Derby thing, and I saw that in full force. I still was skeptical about it because, my God, he he struggled to get to 14 or however many home runs he hit.
Yeah.
And how Schwarber didn't hit that many is insane, considering the fact that he's already done it and got to the final in the other one that he did. So I don't know what happened there and what caused him to just absolutely, fall apart. I don't know if he was like told, by MLB, oh, we're going to turn to the WWE now. So that means this is going to be scripted. So you're going to have to lose and just pretend like it. But yeah, that was that first round was a struggle to watch. I'll put it that way. It was cool to see him win because of, just this being his last year.
Yeah.
And them honoring him like that. But I just thought it was weird he was in it in the first place. I mean, I'm glad that he advanced and he got his butt kicked by Soto in the next round, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So that I was like I was expecting if he wasn't going to win the first round, or I mean, if he was going to win the first round, he was going to get his ass kicked in the second round.
Without a doubt.
So it was cool. You're not going to see things like that anywhere else but the home run derby. But it was still like I want to see guys just absolutely. I want to see guys hit like 30 around, not like a guy struggle to hit 10 and then get gifted 30 bonus seconds because Major League Baseball is like, oh, we're honoring you. So here's this cheap thing because we know you're not going to hit at 440.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I thought that the little ceremony thing they did for him was really cool. But agreed. Like he had no place being in the home run derby.
It was a weird experience, put it that way. But yeah. I mean, it was cool. Again, you're not going to get anything. You're not going to get that at any other place but the home run derby, and that I think is what makes it cool. So it's still weird, but I think for generality standpoint, I think it was still really cool.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I'm happy they did it for him. Pujols has always been one of those guys that I love to watch growing up. He never played for any team that I ever rooted for, but I mean, it was just one of those guys that every time you got to watch him play, like when they would, the times they would play the Rays, like I'd be excited to see Pujols. That's who I was excited to see. Obviously, times have changed now where like the guys I'm excited to see happen to play for the Rays or the Angels at this point. So it's just those are the guys that I enjoy watching now. But it was nice to see him kind of be that center of attention because that's what he was for the home run derby. All eyes were kind of on him to see what happened until he was eliminated. So I think it was cool to see.
I agree with you on that. I don't know if I have anything else, but I did want to mention the home, all the All-Star Game stuff because it's worth mentioning because it literally happened this week
exactly.
Within the last week.
Before our last show it happened, yeah. So, I mean, we haven't had a real RBLR podcast where we just talk baseball since the All-Star break. So this is the first one. But yeah, so man, I'll send it over to you, let you plug whatever you want to plug, and then we'll go ahead and get out of here.
Yeah, of course. So, well, first off, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it. I know we've been trying to do this for a bit now, so I'm glad that at least I was able to come on. I'm hoping that Gibby and Evan will be able to come on in the future, and hopefully other people within
for sure
our group in the future. I know that's definitely going to be in the cards at some point. But if you guys want to follow what we're doing at Raise the Roof, it's Raise the Roof TB on social media. We also have our YouTube channel, Raise the Roof, and then our podcast. Just look up Raise the Roof on any podcast network. You'll be able to find us there. Right now on social media, I know I'm going to pick the winners for it, but we've been doing ticket giveaways with Fergs over, across the street from the Trop. They've been helping us with that. So we've been giving away tickets to games for free. We have a bunch of other giveaways and other things like that are going on. If you guys want to check those out, just things that we have that are, anything that is remotely interesting that we might have that you guys might want, we're going to find a way to put it. I know I have an extra Wander bobblehead because I was actually able to go down that weekend, go to that game. So we have an extra one that we're probably going to give away at some point. And along with that, the NFT stupid garbage, whatever the hell that was associated with that thing. We have 2 tickets for that game, and I already picked it. It's the game against one of the games against the Angels in August. So I just did that because hopefully Trout will be back and Ohtani, so maybe it'll line up with him pitching.
Fingers crossed.
Who knows? But I did that. So a bunch of free games coming up, Wander bobblehead coming up, other giveaways. There's a lot going on. So if you guys want to support us, feel free. And again, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem. And I'm sure Eureka, our producer, his headphones aren't working right now, but I'm sure he'll get those all kind of put into the description. Um, I'm going to ask you guys, the fans listening, we appreciate you guys so much for tuning in, just as much as we appreciate Alex for coming on and stepping up. But if you guys could do us one favor, wherever you're listening to this, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you're listening to your podcast, if you could just give us a follow and let us know kind of what you like, what you don't like. All of our social media is at RBLR Sports. We have all the major social media platforms. If you guys want to just jump on there, give us some suggestions, let us know what you like, dislike, and aside from that, I think we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Alex, thank you again, my man. Go Rays.
Raise up.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.